like this. The axle turns around inside of it like that. This conveys the lubricant, a heavy oil, to the surface of the journal bearing, which is about 8 inches or 9 inches long, and you have to put oil in here every few days or so that it stays lubricating. Looking up here is that truss rod we talk about, and you can see how it's supposed to support this center part here. Now, it doesn't really. See how loose that is? And at some point, there, if we go around, hopefully I'll find one. There's one remaining casting of original type that was a spacer between this block of wood and the rod itself. These at some point along the way fell off, and the Atlantic Shoreline replaced them with just these pieces of channel iron. This item right here is not original, but it's something that we find very important. We call it a trig. It simply is used, put underneath the wheel to keep the car from rolling away. This car, not having been lubricated for 40 years, is pretty stiff, and so we don't need it. Plus this track is level. The car is not going to roll anyway. But in normal use, that would definitely be used all the time by us. The Atlantic Shoreline, what they would do would be to, they have this, like an automobile, these have a handbrake, which is supposed to be for emergency purposes, but it's basically a parking brake, and they just pull up on that. Now, speaking of brakes, I don't know where we're going to see this or not. Yes, you can. If you bring that around this way a little bit. There we go. This item right here is a brake shoe, and that brake shoe is pressed against the wheel by a series of levers that are operated by the air brake. And there's a swing link right here, so this can swing back and forth. Right now the brake is obviously loose because it's way back. And on this particular truck there were some major problems that I'll get into in a minute. Up on top is a spring, which is a brake release spring. What it does is when the brakes come off, it pulls the shoes away from the wheel so they don't keep rubbing there. And that's broken. Here's another set of springs, which is called the motor suspension spring. So the motor actually sits on the axle on its own set of bearings, which are hopefully we'll be able to show you in another version of this photograph. But anyway, that allows the motor to bounce up and down. At one point, the air pressure in this car got much too high, and the brake levers literally tore themselves apart, and that's why we haven't had any air brakes in this car for many, many years. Fortunately, because it hadn't been lubricated, it's so stiff the car didn't roll anyway. We were able to move it around without any brakes.